You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
And good morning, I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. We hope you're having a great Sunday so far. The Louisiana legislature voted to overturn Governor John Bel Edwards' veto of the new congressional map. Political reporter Shannon Hecht breaks down where the votes fell.
It is the first time in decades that the Louisiana legislature has overturned the governor's veto, and this time around it was over the congressional map that was passed during the special redistricting session, and now that map heads to court. The veto came due to the map having only one majority-minority district, despite 1/3 of the state's population coming out as minority. Republicans banded together to get the majority vote in both the House and the Senate to overturn the veto.
The Voting Rights Act is federal law. It is not Louisiana Constitution. That's why we're here today.
But members of the Legislative Black Caucus shared their dismay of not gaining what they believe to be equal representation in Congress.
I don't feel human today. I don't feel seen. I don't feel equal.
Governor John Bel Edwards said he was not surprised the vote went through, but believes the courts will find the map to be unconstitutional. One senator tells me that Louisiana has the strongest case in the country.
While I'm disappointed, I can only tell you I would be very much more disappointed had I been complicit in having a map that I think is so unfair.
There is no word yet on when exactly the courts will take up the case, but the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus spoke after the vote about their dismay over the decision. Caucus President Vincent Pierre sat down with KLFY after the vote. The caucus advocated for a number of maps in the redistricting session that created a second majority-minority district for Congress.
It's not about Democrat or Republican, black or white. It's about the representation of African Americans that had increased tremendously. So we would hope that the people of our state understands that, and our colleagues, but it didn't happen.
Within minutes of the veto overriding taking place, a lawsuit was filed by a group of advocates. Civil rights groups are suing because they say the maps without a second majority black district violate the Voting Rights Act. However, conservatives pushed back, arguing the Voting Rights Act does not guarantee a minority candidate is elected. They say 2 districts would not have enough black voter turnout to elect who they want.
In a state where 1/3 of the population, the voting population is black, it just makes no mathematical sense or doesn't comply with the law that there is not a second majority black district out of the 6 congressional seats.
Senator Cleo Field says Louisiana has the strongest case on the docket to show the move is unconstitutional. Hurricane Ida hit 7 months ago this week, and now lawmakers are tackling the laundry list of problems that arose after the storm through legislation. One bill takes aim at landlords evicting tenants for evacuating. Shannon is back with those details.
The bill by Representative Mandy Landry looks to prevent landlords from evicting their tenants for at least 30 days after a federally declared natural disaster. It was a big problem that they ran into in southeast Louisiana after Hurricane Ida. After the storm rocked southeast Louisiana, the borders of Terrebonne Parish were closed off for days. Representative Tanner McGee says people were already seeing eviction notices before they were allowed in for an inspection.
It was heartbreaking. I mean, when you have kids, nowhere to go, being kicked out, having to be put into a tent.
The bill would prevent landlords from evicting their tenants on the basis of abandonment if they had to evacuate or the house was severely damaged. Ben Toops of Homa stayed in his apartment but was told to leave even with minimal damage.
You gotta find a place to go when there is no place to go. There's no hotels. There's no U-Hauls. There's no anything. We were so late to the game.
Some say the bill doesn't go far enough since it can take months to get a rental livable again after a storm as strong as Ida. But Representative Landry says that she would welcome future legislation but believes the current legislature isn't ready for such a bill.
Sometimes 4 walls, damaged or not, it's all you need. It's literally all you need to survive.
The bill has bipartisan support and passed through the committee with no objection and now heads to the full House for debate. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
State lawmakers are promising to smooth out a wrinkle in the adoption system. A proposed bill would allow adults adopted as children in Louisiana to get their birth certificates without the hassle of going to court. Under current law, adoptees cannot get their original birth certificate, which identifies their birth parents. The State House voted 76 to 21 Tuesday evening to make the certificate available to adoptees once they reach age 24. It still has to go to the Senate. Teachers are in high demand in Louisiana. Reports show about 2,500 vacancies across the state. In Lafayette Parish, the school board is all about spending money to fill that void. Renee Allen reports.
Tuesday, the Lafayette Parish School Board mulls over several proposals to get teachers in the classroom. There's a recruitment and returning teacher stipend of $5,000 and a $4,000 proposed retention stipend. The caveat for each proposal is that the person worked full-time in one of 12 identified school parish classrooms. Then there's House Bill 22, authored by State Representative Rick Edmonds of Baton Rouge.
They desperately need us. Yes, they do. They may not say it, but they do. They need us to come back, okay?
The bill reaches out to retired educators to teach again. Currently, retirees earn 25%. The bill as it stands right now would double that.
They can earn right now 25% of their best 3 years. This bill would allow it to go to 50%.
Retired local educator Juanita Hall gives a thumbs up to the idea.
We know how much of an asset we can be to them, but
Hall also wants to know whether retired educators would be penalized for heading back to the classroom. Hall says there's a cap on how much a retiree can earn.
Am I going back into the system at 30 years? I'm going back at zero, and am I going to be salaried? But what happens to my retirement? Is it put on hold? Is it frozen?
Hall believes the retirees' return bill is positive and a move in the right direction. But before she pencils in work dates on her retirement calendar, Hall will wait for more information.
He's on a good road. He's on a good road. It's just that all of a sudden the road comes to a roadblock. Okay, and that's some of those roadblocks.
That was Renee Allen reporting. Newly released audio in the Ronald Green death investigation reveals a state trooper admitting he beat Green with a flashlight. The audio was obtained by the Associated Press. During an interview with investigators, Trooper Chris Hollingsworth can be heard telling investigators he beat Green with his flashlight because he was scared. He was also asked why he turned off the video on his body camera. Hollingsworth died in a car crash a month after the interview. You can read more about the revealing interview online. Coming up, the Biden administration's cure for high gas prices. Some lawmakers say it's not enough. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. A judge threw out a death penalty lawsuit because Louisiana can't get any execution drugs. An inmate sued the state, claiming Louisiana wouldn't explain how he would die. A judge dismissed the case, saying there's no dispute to settle since the state has not been able to get the drugs needed to kill inmates because execution protocols are tied up in litigation. It's been more than a decade since the state has executed an inmate. Attorney General Jeff Landry is pushing for executions to move forward.
We're going to fulfill the promises we made to them, and we're going to work to ensure that justice is carried out and that these sentences are carried out. That's the promise that we made to victims' families, and today we proved that we're continuing to move in that direction.
Landry is calling for the legislature to act and expand access to lethal drugs. Other state lawmakers hope to abolish the death penalty altogether. A single vote cost the West Baton Rouge Parish School Board to not renew their special tax of 15 mills on the dollar for primary and secondary schools. The 10-year tax, which failed by one vote, provided the West Baton Rouge school system with more than $8 million to go towards school maintenance and salaries. This outcome could hit their wallets. Rachel Riley explains.
If it was something I thought we could do without, then we wouldn't have brought it back. To the voters. But this is really a foundational funding mechanism for us.
After a low voter turnout of a measly 11% and one vote short, the West Baton Rouge Parish School Board's 10-year tax will not be renewed.
This isn't in any way an indication that West Baton Rouge Parish and our community does not support our schools and the work that we do. It doesn't. To me, what this indicates is that we just didn't do a good enough job of getting the word out.
Superintendent Wes Watts says the special tax has been around since 1964.
So this is general operating funds. This does a little bit of everything for us, from paying for power, paying for maybe parts of our transportation system, salaries.
And if not passed, this would be the first time in nearly 60 years where the extra money wouldn't be there.
And that's somewhere north of $8 million for our budget, which is somewhere between 15 and 20%. So just think about your own personal budget, I guess. How would you have to handle living on 80% of what you make right now?
If it doesn't pass in time for the 2024 school year, they'll have to make major adjustments to compensate come summer of 2023.
In terms of staffing and salaries, and those things just don't happen overnight. There will have to be a lot of planning and a lot of change and a lot of tough decisions made.
That was Rachel Riley reporting. Watt says they will try to get the tax renewal back on the ballots again, but there is no time frame for that yet. One vote caused that. Senator Bill Cassidy introduced a bill this week that he says will protect the Louisiana crawfish industry. Senator Cassidy joining other lawmakers introducing the China Trade Cheating Restitution Act. That would direct Customs and Border Protection to pay nearly $39 million from dumping fees to crawfish producers. This comes as prices of the crustaceans has skyrocketed.
What Customs Border Protection does is they put tariffs or levies or fees upon the Chinese for dumping their crawfish. They're by federal law supposed to share that with the crawfish producers to hold them harmless. So we want the money to come, which under federal law should, from those tariffs, fees going to our crawfish farmers.
According to Senator Cassidy, the Chinese often dump crawfish. That's when crawfish is exported to the U.S. at a price below the cost of production, driving Louisiana crawfish producers out of business. 1 million barrels of oil a day released every day for the next 6 months from the nation's strategic reserves is the latest plan from the Biden administration. But will it bring down the price at the pump? Amy Russo reports.
It's a hot topic nationwide.
The price is astronomical.
Gas prices.
When you're spending over $100 every time you fill up your tank, it's crazy.
Since the war in Ukraine, prices have skyrocketed. AAA reports the national price of gas is $4.23. Compare that to a month ago when it was $3.61.
Consumers filling up their gas tank are feeling the effects of the high prices.
Dr. Kay McLennan is a professor at Tulane University. She says impacts are already being felt from Biden's announcement.
Price of oil per barrel at yesterday's close was about $107 a barrel, and it's down to about $102 a barrel and possibly falling even further.
So what could that mean at the pumps?
The general expectation is there's going to be a decrease at the pump, a small decrease. It's also mitigating future increases.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I am.
That was Amy Russo reporting. Law enforcement in the Big Easy getting prepared for those big crowds. They're working the state and federal agencies to increase manpower there. One of the safety measures include light towers being placed throughout the French Quarter. If you're heading to New Orleans for the tournament or for the events, they're asking everyone to take personal responsibility and don't go there to start trouble.
leave your weapons at home. That is the bottom line. There's absolutely no reason to bring a weapon to the streets of New Orleans, and that is a heck of a combination: food, spirits, and a weapon.
They don't want trouble. There will be parking restrictions throughout the French Quarter through Tuesday. Flood insurance is going up. We'll have reaction from lawmakers next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Well, this week, the new Risk Rating 2.0 for the National Flood Insurance Program went into effect. Homeowners may pay up to $100 more a month under Risk Rating 2.0. With these immediate increases, some people believe they may not be able to pay their insurance. Hundreds are still recovering from the major hurricanes that rocked the state over the last few years.
Some folks are going to notice it right away. Others will say, okay, it's a little bit up, but everything's up. But it's that second, third, fourth, and fifth year that it just becomes unaffordable for many families.
Risk Rating 2.0 marks the biggest financial change for the National Flood Insurance Programs yet. As many as 80% of flood insurance holders in Louisiana will see that increase. Representative Garrett Graves called on FEMA leadership to be more transparent with the Risk Rating 2.0 calculations. On Friday, he held a call with FEMA and Parish presidents from southern Louisiana to talk about how FEMA isn't taking into consideration improvements such as flood protection projects, levees, and drainage that should lower rates. Despite the higher cost of gas, along with almost everything else, Friday's jobs report shows an economy moving in the right direction. Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley has more from D.C.
Well, today's jobs report is definitely good news for the Biden administration. Data out this morning paints an optimistic picture of the economy. The question that remains, though, does the average American share that sense of optimism that the economy is, in fact, heading in the right direction? The government says 431,000 jobs were added last month. That helped bring the unemployment rate down to 3.6%. That's the lowest it's been since the pandemic started 2 years ago. The report also says 418,000 people started looking for jobs last month, adding that many were able to find one. Service sector jobs like hotels, restaurants, and retail accounted for almost 1/3 of the jobs added last month. Average hourly pay is also up 5.6% over the past year, but economists say that is also helping drive inflation. Despite the good news in today's report, gas prices continue to rise along with the cost of food, rent, and utilities. Data also shows inflation outpacing many of the wage increases for employees over the past few months. Despite all that, today President Biden painted an optimistic view of the current economy.
Americans are back to work, and that's good news for millions of families who have a little more breathing room and the dignity that comes from earning a paycheck, just the dignity of having a job. And more Americans get jobs as they do. It's going to help ease the supply pressures we've seen. And that's good news for fighting inflation. It's good news for our economy, and it means that our economy has gone from being on the mend to being on the move.
Also today, the government revised its jobs reports from January and February. New data shows both of those months created more jobs than originally thought. Reporting in Washington, I'm Trevor Shirley.
Well, the United States House of Representatives has voted to federally decriminalize marijuana in a slim bipartisan vote. The bill would prevent federal agencies from denying workers security clearance if they use cannabis. It will also allow for the Veterans Administration to recommend medical marijuana to veterans who are living with PTSD. Many believe it will not get the 60 votes in the Senate to break the filibuster. That bill is now headed to the Senate. We'll keep an eye on it. Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Looking ahead to the coming week, the legislature is back in session after taking a long weekend following that veto override session. The special committee investigating the death of Ronald Green will call District Attorney John Belton to testify on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Chip Klein of the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority will be speaking at the Baton Rouge Press Club. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed. I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.